G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 24th of October 2025. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood Arcade, Power Games, Into the Ozbound and The Erotic Tales from Nearby. Part 1 is out now, Part 2 is coming soon. Thank you to all those who support the channel, and you can support the channel through the links in the link tree. Find out more after the show. Now, sorry I'm late. I shouldn't make excuses, but I got wrapped up in my previous recordings for another channel, and I do apologize. Now, this story came out several times. It's been updated for today. And I think the reason why it keeps getting updated is it comes from the same online media platform. And they keep putting out the same press releases. It's now the official statement from China is that China has taken a clear and consistent position that reflects the essence of the matter. That they have and always will, allegedly, support a ceasefire and peaceful negotiations, yada yada yada. They have called many times for de-escalation, and what we find is, right, you find, and if you are unbiased, good on you, you're probably the minority right now, is that Ukraine, its supporters, have engaged in a hate campaign since 2014. Okay? Ukraine has brought this on themselves, and they refuse to acknowledge that only they have the power to stop this war. Every time, since 2022, every time Zelensky's asked to negotiate, he crosses his arms and says no, 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 and then he rushes to his European partners for more weapons. If you don't believe me, fine. But so many people in the comment section haven't watched the video. They keep telling me I know nothing about Russia. And what do they know about Russia? They just make broad, generalized statements. Yeah, what's the difference between the British attitude, Ukrainian attitude, and the Russian attitude right now? Every country is acting in their self-interest. How hard is that for you to comprehend? Nope, gotta go into the comment section and say, you know nothing about Russia. Yeah. Thank you, Tucker Carlson. We know nothing about Russia. Thanks a lot. Now, piss off. Every man and his dog has an opinion on the war, but do they watch the videos? Do they actually read the articles? No. They go to their little corner of the world and drink the Kool-Aid. Do you find it funny? Do you think it's delightful that Ukrainians are... You can see right now an article written by Ukrainian agents for the BBC showing a vehicle hit by a Ukrainian drone in Russia. Tell me, what's a war crime if this is not a war crime? And how does a Ukrainian how does a BBC Ukrainian in London speak to Nina in Belgrade? And how, yeah, of course, what the only reason I'm bringing up this article is that they finally admit the quiet part out loud. Ukraine is suffering greater losses. That's how war works. The winning side is inflicting more damage on the losing side. Doesn't matter size. It doesn't care about... War doesn't care about your politics, bro. Doesn't care if you think you're the oppressed. It doesn't think if you're the hero. War does not care if you think God is on your side. War is like fire. Fire doesn't care if you're living, good, bad. It only cares that it is heat, and that heat causes oxidation. War is like a chemical reaction. It doesn't have a bias. A bullet does not curve. A bullet, a drone, a missile, they all do not stop to ask your side, your politics, your sexuality. It is like a chemical reaction. It is, and it is always has been, an action-reaction. That's it. There is no politics in war, right? You're sitting there. You're not going to ask the guy beside you, hey, how well do you support Zelensky? No. The only thing you are caring about in the trenches is cover my back while I take a shit. If a meal pack comes in, you hope the other guys in the trench aren't going to exclude you. And if the order comes to go over the wall, you goddamn hope that it's not a wasteful, useful order. Since World War I, there has been an ever decrease in the use of head-on tactics. And that is by both sides. It's approach to firing range. It is not engage in melee or fisticuffs, okay, or duels. So, when Trump calls for a freeze, he's not doing this from a position of naivete. He is somewhat trained and briefed, not just in his prior schooling, in though that's brief and I wouldn't actually make that qualifies, but I'm saying as president, he is trained to, who to call on, what their level of expertise are, and basically he has the political experts, like a panel of 20. I think when it comes to war, the Pentagon panel is quite large. So don't make assumptions that Trump will basically say to his chief of staff, this is what I want. And it will go through the chain of command, probably through the National Security Advisor, the Pentagon, liaison office, probably 2 or 3 other organizations, including the it would be the National Committee, I think, the special, though, office of the political organization within the Republican Party. It goes through, actually, it probably even goes through various committees in Congress, and is Congress and the House? The House? Now I'm getting confused. There's been, but you know what I mean. Senators and congressmen in various committees, national security, armed services. These briefings are in themselves costing the American taxpayer, I believe, somewhere around $150 billion a year. So you better be getting bang for your buck as far as I'm concerned. So when Trump says he wants to freeze the Russian-Ukraine war, I think, regardless of politics, you should take it as a given that there are enough people telling him that it's possible. Now, all we get from Ukraine in response is propaganda. And unfortunately, the talks have stalled because of both sides. Zelensky refuses to negotiate. Russia refuses to do anything until Ukraine. He has failed to move both sides. Because Russia insists it wants the land. Zelensky says you've got to give it up before a ceasefire. Ukraine has balked at the ceasefire as well. Now, this is Al Jazeera, a pro-Ukrainian news outlet. Unlike the BBC, however, the Al Jazeera has at least admitted that Ukraine has balked as well. Russia balked as well because Ukraine went running straight to Europe asking for more weapons. Now, long-time viewers of the channel will know that I have consistently called this out, that if one side or the other really wanted to trip up and show who does not want peace, right, all they have to do is make a public statement about a ceasefire and watch what the other side does. We've seen that. They both balked. That's unfortunate, because now the Glazers, the bootlickers of both sides, will point at each other and say, it's your fault, and then they'll both point at me and say, you know nothing about Ukraine/Russia. Well, guess what? They're the same. They're British intelligence. They're FSB. They're CIA. They are Machiavellian. They are the 48 rules of power. They are not different. When this sinks in, okay, that there are only a few personality types that make it into government. Most personality types crumble, okay? You've seen all the kumbaya, right? The only people who make it to government and remain in government are ruthless. And they are professional liars, okay? I'll admit it. Trump knows when to lie. But here's the difference, and I think between Trump, Keir Starmer, most of Europe actually, I believe, right, when Rutte comes up and says Trump is not trying to destroy NATO, that's the truth. He is just flat, succinct. Keir Starmer stumbles. He has a tell. He always looks off screen for approval. He knows this. You watch how he tries to control his body language. He's literally shaking sometimes because he is trying to suppress his tell. Putin is very confident. He knows that this is the biggest gamble of his life, but he knows right now he has the wind of China behind him. And the wind of India behind him. He never counted on Pakistan or South Africa or Brazil or Venezuela. Cuba and Vietnam and North Korea's maybe. But he never counted on... Now, right now, North Korea is showing its... all the way with Putin. It's pretty much like to the hilt so far. But it's a financial relationship, just like every other relationship in BRICS. But Trump's proposal to halt the war where the fighting is now occurring and have negotiations to draw down the line to cut the battle. The problem is the Ukrainian president will not give any land. 78% of the land claimed by Russia is now in Russian control. You can walk away right now losing less land. First peace deal, Ukraine would have only lost 15%. It's getting close to 30%. The total land allegedly claimed is close to 30%. I think it's more like 27.5 or 28. Right now, I think they're sitting at 25%. No, sorry, 22%. Right? I think the more Russia takes, the more adamant Zelensky gets in not giving up any land. But see, Zelensky isn't going to pay a political price. This is the problem. Germany may pay political price right now. The Germans have overwhelmingly, resoundingly turning against him, even his own party. France is split between the various factions equally, meaning they're paralyzed and soon will absolutely collapse, probably into civil war. England is bitterly divided, and if Starmer doesn't step down, he faces a backbench revolt and losing some peers to reform. That will be the end of his career. But the problem is, he still walks away with a pocket fortune. Look at Blair. He made, what, $50 million out of consultancy? Keir Starmer could probably make at least that much and more. Oh, that's right. It's only bad when Republicans make money, right? Now, key events, same propaganda every day. There's nothing really new except for Kim lining up a army claiming that these are soldiers who fought alongside Russia. Apparently these are returning home. So there's been a troop rotation. Sanctions. Putin hasn't really responded to it. Although apparently Trump has responded to Putin's "we'll wait and see." But Trump says that glad he feels that way. That's good. I'll let you know in about 6 months from now. So Trump knows sanctions, the two biggest oil companies right now. He knows the oil cycle. Okay? Once deliveries are made, we'll see how it affects. Chancellor may exempt Rosneft from its German businesses because it's currently controlled by Germany and yet remains Russian-owned, but the money doesn't flow back to Germany. It's what the assets they're stealing. OPEC may output, due to sanctions on Russia, may roll back its output cuts. But other countries, Iran can't step up its oil production. Venezuela tried it, has failed. There are countries that are probably Kuwait, not Iraq. Syria's in trouble. Turkey's in trouble. Saudi Arabia might not be able to. They may not be able to step up enough production, which may actually benefit the United States, because they will be exporting more expensive gas and oil. So don't tell me that everything is it's always what you would call the national interest. The problem is, when does national interest collide with morality? Well, that's easy to answer, really. It's when both sides refuse to compromise. Now, the reasonable compromise in this situation, though, there was a attack here at a railway station What's this? Yes, Russia has returned 1,000 bodies of Ukrainian servicemen. This is a civilian attack on a Ukrainian train. There are daily attacks in Ukraine on, a lot of it has to do with feuds, but some of it is to prevent, what's it called again? They don't call it conscription in Ukraine, but it is conscription. I think they call it patriotic roundup or something, latest euphemism for kidnapping and setting people on the front line. Call up. Actually, was it roundup or call up? Well, military call up, because if the trains aren't flying, the people aren't flying. So the only people that can travel by train are usually on their way to either have a travel pass or on their way for military call-up. Now, apparently critical infrastructure has been hit. That's code for power stations, water facilities, waste production. Waste management, usually sewage. So we'll see. With attacks across usual attacks on ports. If there are attacks down here, this would be on the Ukrainian drone boats. Told you Russia would find them. Alright, so you have the attacks on Belgrade, yes, and these were met with attacks on Odessa an hour ago. So, pretty much, Ukraine will cry that Russia's attack on Odessa is an aggression. And this is somehow defense. That's hypocrisy. Kharkiv hit multiple times. Now, one of the reasons why they hit the post office is that it is the office of it's run by the Office of Communications for the military. Russia is by hitting the post office is preventing the letters being sent out for call-up. Apparently, without the call-up letters being delivered, you don't get called up, and if your letter's burnt, this is why there are so many people out there who are being charged absentia, and then turns out they don't even know they're being called up. So, block fighting continues. Nothing really significant. Russia's taken a small town here in the north. Nothing of significance. The fighting continues over the main road linking Kupiansk and the other areas. Alright, so we go down the coast, front line. North of Lyman there is fighting. On the outskirts of Zakrin and other areas there's continued fighting. Russia's made small advances north of Silvesk. Nothing really significant north. A little bit of change to the map here north of Chavashar, but nothing significant. Now we get to the siege of Koz, and again, nothing significant. The little bit of change to the map here, the siege of Pok and Miriel, no significant changes. Russia's made only small gains here and there. And again, though this is the main area of fighting, where there's been some changes to the map. But again, it's no significant town, such as Ruddy. These are the ones. Now, I think they're trying to sever the rail line again. They're having to grind again. The Russians in some areas are grinding, made small advances, mostly small advances today, nothing of significance. The only significant news is, once again, Crimea is no attacks on Crimea, no attacks on Russian shipping, no successful attacks on Russian military assets. Though there was attacks on a financial office in Moscow. Because Zelensky's trying to destroy his, and Ukraine's, but most likely his debts in Russia, attacking Russian banks under the guise of economic warfare to shut down the war, as if Russian banks are significant when you're only blowing up a tiny little office. That's going after records. Everything Ukraine does is a lie wrapped in propaganda. But Russia is ready to respond to new sanctions, but still believes that a treaty for New START, this is the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. This is talking about the fact that both sides, though it's hard to say, but most people believe right now Russia is sitting on a few more missiles. But, yeah, again, this is about deployment. And when it comes to deployment of missiles, Russia is at the disadvantage. Now, since 1954, here's an interesting thing about weaponry. Since 1954, the US each year has creeped ahead of Russia. One of the most significant differences now is the anti-submarine missile. The US, particularly the Arlington class destroyer. Is it destroyer? Or is it cruiser? Well, the submarine variant, the anti-sub variant of the Arlington, has one of the most advanced anti-submarine missiles in the world. But it's also on the P-8 Orion. Now, this missile can be launched from a ship or from an altitude as high as 30,000 feet. This missile is known as the Silent Hunter. Both the ship and the Orion could deploy, I think, 8 passive sonar buoys over a large area, and they could pretty much hear the ocean and hear submarines. They've catalogued and able to identify most submarines within moments of detection, because they spend decades spying on each other and decades of US subs sitting there listening to the ocean, looking for movement, listening for that unique vibration of each submarine's nuclear reactors, drive shaft, propeller cavitations, the hull vibrations. There's a whole lot of noise that a computer could distinguish, but not a person, right? But in the past, people can at least with sonar go, yeah, I can hear a diesel, or yeah, I can hear the nuclear vibrations in the water. But identification is far more important. But what the Hunter does, when the anti-submarine missile is, it's fired, it hits the water relatively slow, it slows down, usually using a chute, or glides into the water very slowly, hardly a whisper, right? It sounds, from a sonar perspective, it sounds like a flying fish, basically skipping, or a dolphin skipping along. It's not detectable in theory. In practicality, you hear a bunch of splashing above you. Start praying. Right. This hunter is deployed outside of sonar range and heads to last known contact using its own internal guidance and sonar, passive, and then goes active in the final kill stage. But by the time it's final kill stage, its single one only ping is basically confirmation of target, and boom. Now, why is this significant? Because there is pressure, particularly behind the scenes, to put military pressure on Russia for Ukraine to destroy Russian assets. Now, they've tried and failed so far. They've managed to sink a few ships. The Spanish and French, I think, have each seized the ship, although I think the Spanish did eventually release it because it was Chinese crude. But eventually, whether or not we're going to see something as advanced as an anti-submarine missile enter the weapon arsenal, I'm bringing this up so that you know there are weapons yet to be deployed. There is the Abrams tank are only the standard M1s. They're not even the They're not. Some say they are the A1s, but there is allegedly no A2s. And allegedly the other day, Trump approved the production of the A3, and by approved, admitted to the A3. Now, Germany, I thought, was coming out with a new Leopard with a 140mm. There was talk about a 140mm. We haven't seen it yet. It is allegedly a tank killer. I think that is yet. But again, another one is, as we've seen with the armoured personnel vehicles in Ukraine, they are one shot, one kill. Okay, the T-80, which is an outdated tank, can easily kill a modern armoured personnel carrier. Now, the only one that probably may, and I think this is maybe, is the Striker. But again, and the Bradleys, again with the Striker and Bradleys, there are not many of them, and we have not seen direct engagement. We have actually not seen that much direct engagement in the last, I would say, month, not since the loss of the Leopard. Was it A4 or A5? We know that Russia's got a couple of Abrams. They are back in action, allegedly, although we haven't seen footage. Now, if you're in doubt on India's side, let me tell you, India is on India's side. Now, India is working hard to target submarines. This would be Chinese submarines, though they are buying Russian anti-submarine missiles, although they are locally providing them as BrahMos missiles. These are actually, and don't let the propaganda fool you, same with the Indian Army's tanks. The Indian Army may have a new designation, but they're T-90s. Same with their missiles. Their BrahMos missile is a Russian. It is slightly different design, but it is a Russian missile with a Indian coat of paint. Same with but torpedoes, again, and early warning systems and others. They have historically relied on Russian equipment and technology, and have many licensing agreements. Got to remember, their key air force and their key tanks are Western. Okay? India is playing both sides right now to get a biggest discount as it can. It does not care one iota how many people die in Ukraine. They do not care about Russia and its ambitions. They are hoping that Russia weakens itself so that it can continue its so-called indigenization, i.e. we steal your technology and nothing you can do about it program. As with most of the world, most countries have not developed technologies of their own. They merely copied others and continue to do so with total disregard for the truth. Look at it, you, China. Again, it's like, why does China back the so-called peace plan? They don't. That's just lip service. They're exploiting this war to get a big discount off Russia, to keep them desperate, to keep the Europeans engaged so that Chinese military can strategically plan and make up for their failures and shortfalls in technology. China was looking at a T-110, which was a 140mm version of the T-90. It's failed, and it's actually not 140, it's 135mm. And why is that significant? Because the punching power of a 90mm tungsten compared to a 135 may sound on paper, wow, it's a heavier shell, it's going to have more mass, therefore mass times acceleration. That's the other part of the equation. They had to reduce it to 135 to get just a bit, just to have as much punching power as the T-90's 90mm tungsten core. Now, yes, the Russian caliber is higher, but it's the tungsten core, okay? And most tanks, tungsten cores, like in a 125mm tank, the tungsten core is actually smaller, okay? It's wrapped in a copper sheath to give it stabilized flight. The copper sheath actually burns off as it hits the target. That's the penetrator, okay? The molten copper is the penetrator, the heat transference, and then you have the punch through by the tungsten core. The Chinese have been trying to increase the size of the tungsten core so they could have higher armor penetration. But that's not how it works. You need the copper to be heated by the friction of the barrel and the heat transference from the explosion and the force of impact and the energy transference to melt and have burn through. If you have insufficient copper, you have insufficient penetration, and you're actually reducing the flow of the tungsten core through the molten copper and the melted armor into, because you need the heat transference. Because most tanks aren't killed by the hit. They're killed by the detonation of their ammunition. So, we have right now a desperate China, Xi Jinping, who allegedly survived the coup attempt. I think it was just the reshuffling of the deck chairs to appease to reflect changes in factions, as Xi has taken a huge embarrassment and a huge hit in that some of the people he put his trust in turned out to be unreliable, incompetent, or very good at polishing metals and lining pockets. And Xi decided to, well, the last thing you want is to be associated with crooks, so he cut them all loose to save his own skin. His Taiwan plan failed, so it's now, but that doesn't mean China's given up. So while Russia is in disarray over the Ukraine war, you have Europe in disarray. This serves the interests of somewhat to the United States, somewhat India, and somewhat China. But what China wants in particular is a victory of sorts, so they know exactly what equipment they are to table come. Now, they only have until August next year to increase their production. If their production fails again to increase, which it has fallen this year, right, Russia will shift more ammunition purchases to India as India is gearing up, which will further hamper. Remember, economies don't care about your couple of million you buy on Temu. They care about the couple of billion you buy through Walmart, Kmart, Target, Metro, and a dozen other companies. About 1.3, 1.4 trillion. But the Chinese economy has shrunk by 1.28 trillion with the collapse of the internal housing market, and they've also shrunk with the collapse of ceramics, copper, gold production has fallen. Chinese had a shortfall in gold, which created a wave of panic and panic buying, which dramatically shot up the price of gold, which has benefited deep core miners who increased production because they've only got limited time to make money off their leases. So they wait for the price of gold to peak, and then like crazy, they race the gold to the market. And so that stabilizes the price. They only have a short time. Because if you've sitting on a gold mine lease, you've got to make money. Otherwise, you're losing, right? And you can't renew your lease. You got to, right? Once you start a gold mine up, you've got to make money off it. And a lot of these gold mines, they open every few years. They run for a while and then they shut down. And the owners walk away. It's not worth mining at low value. But they hope that they get a wave, and then they can renew that makes it worth renewing their lease. But each year, gold mines are getting dearer and dearer to operate. Plus, there's so much competition in gold, particularly from Brazil right now, who's flooding the world with cheap gold as well as illegal operations. And this is all destabilizing the European economy because they run on consistent speculation. That's a fancy way of saying they rigged the market on currency transfers. But now they can't make a decision. Ursula von der Leyen promised new proposals by December. They don't know what to do with the Russian assets. They face legal challenges. They face investors from various countries pulling out. Now again, out of $300 billion, they're only going to allegedly loan Ukraine Russian assets, and then later down the track declare these war reparations, right, and transfer the assets legally. But in order to do so, they have to defeat Russia. So they cannot let Ukraine sign a deal. So there are many sticking points and many moving parts to a Trump-Russia, Trump-Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine plan, because there are more outsiders than you think who have their finger in the pie. And the more people who have their finger in the pie, I'm not talking about outside commentators. Nothing I say will affect the outcome. I'm talking about the EU, India, and China. They are all, to some extent North Korea, all have a vested interest in continuing this war, even the EU. See, they even call it a reparations loan. But the risks are not just lawsuits from Western companies who will lose their assets in Russia. Right now, there's lots of frozen assets in both sides. And there are also land dealings and various other trade deals and unpaid goods, unpaid taxes. Right now, many commentators have said Europe stands more to lose because it's not just Russia they'll lose in. They could lose in China. Well, they're losing in China, which is why they're transferring to India. But this is a trap helped along by India, who is responsible for Keir Starmer getting in office. So, when somebody says they know a lot about the Ukraine war, most of them are blowing smoke, reading you the BBC, putting their face on the front screen so you don't actually, so you think it's their ideas that you're hearing. I bring you receipts, so please like, share, and subscribe. Support the channel as best as you can. I really need your help. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile. Of course, you can just scan on the screen with your phone. Really appreciate your help. Thanks to all who have, and I'll see you in the next video. And really, it's in your best interest that this war ends. Just remember, nobody thought about World War I in Sarajevo. Nobody thought a regional war on the French-German border over Alsace-Lorraine would turn into a global war either. Or you forget, okay, China and its interests in Africa, India, and China are right now. It's more likely that India will attack Pakistan and claim self-defense, though they want to be in a position to neutralize China. India has flexed its muscles before, but I think a lot of it is propaganda by both sides. But right now, the only person who can end the Ukraine war is Zelensky. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. President, but I don't think Trump has the political will to stand up to Zelensky and put him in the spotlight and say, well, my friend, if you won't accept a peace deal with Russia, I'm cutting you off. But he's made a deal with Europe, and so we can't. Bye for now.